Welcome everybody to What's the 411? This is the place that brings you news, observation, interpretation, and news commentary. Let's get it.
What's the 411 news? Appreciate y'all checking us out, man. Be sure to check us out on Facebook. We're available on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. All right. Be sure to check us out at that time. Whenever we broadcast, we'll be live on those platforms. And I guess many more to come whenever more platforms become available to go live on. But we appreciate y'all. This is What's the 411 News, where we bring you news observation, interpretation, and commentary from a foundational Black American, Black grassroots perspective. All right. And you guys see it on the screen. Biden administration giving health insurance to undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants, which means they're not registered anywhere to be known to be living in the USA. Many are illegally here. And the government is talking about, the Biden administration specifically, it's all about giving them health benefits. And which brings the question up, what about the Black Americans of the country, whose ancestors built the country? All right. What about them? Everybody getting benefits except Black Americans, foundational Black Americans. It's crazy, right? Well, we're going to go into it right quick. All right. So, let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Okay. Let's get into it, man. Yep. The Biden administration has approved. You guys, excuse me for a second here. The Biden administration has approved an application by Washington State to expand health insurance access for all residents, regardless of immigration status, by allowing it to, looks like, forego requirements set by the Affordable Care Act. All right. Washington State. Y'all keep that in mind. Washington State. The Department of Health and Human Services and the Treasury Department approved Washington's application for a state innovation waiver issued under 1302, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1322, of the ACA. The application for this waiver was submitted in May. All right. What is, excuse me, I said 22, but 1332. What is a 1332 waiver? A state may apply for a 1332 request if it wishes to pursue, quote, innovative strategies for providing affordable health care while still retaining, protections. I'm getting my words mixed up here today. Offered through the ACA. The HHS secretary may approve a 1332 waiver request if they determine that the proposed plan will provide coverage that is at least as comprehensive as coverage provided without the waiver, which the Washington State plan was found to do. All right. Okay. Now, the Evergreen States exception, Washington State specifically sought to be granted an exception from a part of the ACA that excluded people living in the U.S. Excluded people living in the U.S. illegally from being eligible for qualified health plans, which are plans certified by the federal government that meet requirements set by the ACA. According to the two departments, this waiver will expand access to qualified health plans, standalone qualified dental plans, and a state affordability program to Washington residents, regardless of their immigration status. Which means you can call your buddies from wherever and tell them, let's come on over here. They'll give you some health insurance plans. And I had to question myself, like, what's next? You know, free healthcare? You know, or is this like a free healthcare plan for them? You know what I mean? The waiver will help Washington work towards its goals of improving health equity and reducing racial disparities. Imagine that. Reducing racial disparities. So why doesn't this include Black Americans at all? And, you know, there's some racial disparities amongst Black Americans, right? But reducing racial disparities by expanding access to coverage for the uninsured population through the state exchange, all the while not increasing costs for those currently enrolled, the department said in the statement. The approval of this waiver is contingent on the state accepting specific terms and conditions. If these requirements are agreed on, then the waiver will go into effect from the beginning of 2024 to the end of 2028. Imagine that, election time, huh? Election year, right? While the newly approved waiver will not go into effect next year, the White House noted in its approval that Washington State had allocated funds for a state subsidy program called Cascade Care Savings. Now let's read that one again. While the newly approved waiver will not go into effect next year, the White House noted in the approval that Washington State had allocated fiscal 2023 funds for a state subsidy program called Cascade Care Savings. I looked that up. The program offers premium subsidies to residents who get plans through Washington Health Plan Finder and make up to 250% of the federal poverty level. All right. For 2023, $50 million was allocated for this program. With the approval of this waiver, an additional $5 million will become available for these subsidies beginning the following year. Not the only one. Roughly 20 other states have applied for and received approval of ACA Section 1332 waivers, including Alaska, Georgia, New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. In cases where applications were not approved, the agencies often determined that they were incomplete. In a similar move to Washington State's, Colorado expanded affordable health care coverage to include people living in the U.S. illegally. I'm going to read that one again. In a similar move to Washington State's, Colorado expanded affordable health care coverage to include people living in the U.S. illegally. While Colorado has received approval for its own ACA waivers, this expansion to include residents regardless of immigration status was done through the state's own programs. It did not include federal coverage. ACA stands for Affordable Care Act, in case y'all didn't know. All right. So, yeah. What do you guys think about that? Before we get out of here, there's been some people on Twitter making some comments in regards to this, man. So we're going to take a look at those. All right. Let's take a look. All right. Let's take a look. Chris Brown, B1 FBA about that life, says there's nothing this country has ever done that benefited black people, it didn't want to do to benefit itself. Our protests and demonstrations only gave them cover to hide their racism by claiming they were being humane by recognizing and reacting to our dissatisfaction. Liars. All right. It's a being or BIYN, I'm gonna call him being Israel Lil Dave, I guess you can call him as well, said, bruh, I can't stand dude. Black folks can't get nothing. I guess he's referring to Biden, right? And Shango says, and MFers think Native Black Americans shouldn't get reparations. All right. And JD Black, they're just helping with the destruction of America in the hopes that they can instill some pseudo white supremacist government permanently. All right. And DeMar Johnson says, isn't it strange that white people are not mad about illegals unless they know what's really going on? Okay. And Khaled's disciple says, how does this make sense? How does this make sense? Yeah, that's what I say. How does this make sense? And the guy with no Twitter name, but he has the at 613 mitzvah. He just says, huh? Like what? What's really going on? Right? And lastly, my brother Marcel Dixon, Marcel for Congress, says, this is all totally disgusting. Totally disgusting. Well, you guys let me know what you think, man. Put it in the comments. This is crazy. This is what I say is another display, the Biden administration's display of the Derek Chauvin's knee on Black Americans' necks. That's what this Biden administration is doing, putting another Derek Chauvin knee on Black Americans' throats. This is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Straight ridiculous. To be able to give illegal immigrants some type of health insurance. They can just come here and they can get some health insurance, apparently. I don't think they, in this article, they didn't mention anything about amounts that they had to pay or any type of responsibility on these illegal immigrants' parts. They can just come on in and get that health care, get that health insurance popping for them. And again, like I say, man, that's just another, the Biden administration showing that they can put their Derek Chauvin knees on Black Americans' necks. That's what it's about. All right. So again, we appreciate y'all, man. Be sure to check us out. Again, like I said, what's the 411 News or WT4 News, however you want to call us. We are normally live on YouTube, at Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch at What's the 411 News, or some form of that, WT4 News. You know it's us. You see the colors on the screen. And with that being said, I appreciate y'all, man. Subscribe to the channel. Tell your peoples about it. Let's get these numbers up. As you all know, the mainstream media is not going to report black news the way we do. And we're doing it for y'all. All right. Until we come black again, this is What's the 411 News? And we'll be back with another one later. I'm out of here. Peace.
Welcome everybody to What's the 411? This is the place that brings you news, observation, interpretation, and news commentary. Let's get it.